Shayna Hubers appeared to be the kind of young woman people expected to succeed in life. Intelligent, well-spoken, and outwardly charming, she presented herself as ambitious and driven. But behind that image was a turbulent and deeply unstable relationship that would eventually end in one of the most disturbing murder cases in modern American true crime. The story centers on Shayna Hubers and the man she killed, Ryan Poston, a successful young attorney whose life ended in a shocking act of violence that stunned investigators and the public alike. The two met in 2011 in Kentucky. Ryan Poston was a respected lawyer known among friends and colleagues as intelligent, disciplined, and somewhat reserved. He had a stable career and a promising future ahead of him. Shayna Hubers, several years younger, quickly became infatuated with him. At first, their relationship appeared like many others. They went on dates, spent time together, and shared moments that looked perfectly normal from the outside. But beneath that surface, their dynamic was far from healthy. Friends later said the relationship was extremely volatile. Shayna was described as intensely jealous and emotionally unpredictable. Arguments between them were frequent. Ryan reportedly tried several times to distance himself from the relationship, but Shayna seemed unable to accept the idea of losing him. Her behavior became increasingly obsessive. She would send long streams of messages, appear uninvited, and constantly question his loyalty. The tension escalated even further when Ryan began talking to another woman online. The woman he was communicating with was actually Audrey Bolt, who had gained public attention after winning a major beauty pageant title. Shayna discovered these conversations and became furious. In her mind, this was proof that Ryan was planning to leave her. According to later evidence presented in court, Shayna's obsession grew darker during this time. Text messages revealed a disturbing pattern of manipulation, anger, and desperation. She seemed convinced that if she lost Ryan, her life would collapse completely. Everything came to a breaking point on October 12, 2012. That evening, Shayna went to Ryan's condominium in the town of Highland Heights, Kentucky. The two began arguing almost immediately. What exactly happened in the minutes that followed would become the central question of the entire investigation. During the argument, Shayna picked up a handgun that belonged to Ryan. Then she pulled the trigger. The first shot struck him. Then she fired again and again. In total, Shayna shot Ryan Poston 6 times. The final shot was fired into his head while he was already on the floor. Later, during police questioning, Shayna herself described it in a chilling way, saying she shot him because she believed he was still alive and suffering. After the shooting, she made a call to emergency services. The 911 call quickly became one of the most disturbing pieces of evidence in the entire case. Instead of sounding terrified or panicked, Shayna's tone was strangely calm. At times, she even appeared oddly casual as she explained that she had just shot her boyfriend. When police arrived at the apartment, they found Ryan Poston dead on the floor. Shayna Hubers was immediately taken into custody. What followed next would make the case even more shocking. During the police interrogation, Shayna spoke for hours. Investigators expected someone who had just killed her partner to be emotional, frightened, or overwhelmed. Instead, they witnessed behavior that many later described as deeply unsettling. At times, Shayna laughed. At other moments, she casually sang songs while sitting in the interrogation room. In one of the most widely discussed moments from the interrogation footage, she began singing the song Happy Birthday to herself because it was technically her birthday at midnight. Detectives listened as she described the shooting in detail. She claimed that Ryan had been abusive and that she acted in self-defense. According to her story, he had threatened her and she believed her life was in danger. But investigators quickly began to question that explanation. The physical evidence inside the apartment told a different story. Ryan had been shot multiple times, including once while he was already down. The pattern of wounds suggested something far more aggressive than a desperate act of self-defense. Prosecutors later argued that the final shot to his head looked more like an execution than a defensive reaction. As detectives continued questioning her, Shayna's statements became increasingly inconsistent. At times, she insisted she feared for her life. At other moments, she appeared almost proud of what she had done. When the case went to trial, prosecutors painted a picture of a deeply obsessive relationship that had spiraled into lethal jealousy. They argued that Shayna could not accept that Ryan wanted to end their relationship and that the shooting was an act of rage and control. The defense, however, tried to present a very different narrative. They claimed Ryan had been emotionally abusive and manipulative. According to Shayna's lawyers, she had been terrified during the argument and fired the gun in panic. But the prosecution introduced a massive amount of digital evidence. Investigators had recovered hundreds of text messages and online conversations showing Shayna's growing obsession. Some of the messages revealed intense jealousy and threats. Others showed her struggling emotionally whenever Ryan attempted to distance himself. The jury also saw the full interrogation footage. Those videos shocked many people watching the trial. Shayna's behavior appeared bizarre and unpredictable. The laughing, singing, and casual tone she used while discussing the killing left a strong impression on jurors. In 2015, the jury reached a verdict. Shayna Hubers was found guilty of murdering Ryan Poston. But the story did not end there. In an unexpected legal twist, the conviction was later overturned due to a technical issue involving one of the jurors. The case was sent back for a new trial, meaning the entire courtroom drama would begin again. During the second trial in 2018, prosecutors presented the same evidence once more. The disturbing interrogation footage again played a central role. Once again, jurors watched Shayna calmly discussing the killing and singing inside the interrogation room. After reviewing the evidence, the jury reached the same conclusion. Shayna Hubers was found guilty of murder for a second time. She was sentenced to decades in prison. Even after the trial ended, the case continued to attract attention. People who watched the interrogation footage often described it as one of the strangest police interviews ever recorded. The mix of casual conversation, emotional detachment, and disturbing humor left many viewers deeply unsettled. Over time, the story became widely discussed across true crime communities. Many commentators began comparing the case to another infamous American murder involving jealousy and a toxic relationship, the case of Jodi Arias. Because of those similarities, media outlets started calling Shayna Hubers the Kentucky Jodi Arias. For the family and friends of Ryan Poston, however, the story was never about sensational headlines. To them, it was the loss of a son, a friend, and a man whose life ended far too soon. Ryan had been planning a future, building a career, and preparing for the next stage of his life. Instead, that future ended inside his own home during a violent argument with someone who could not accept the end of a relationship. The Shayna Hubers case remains one of the most chilling examples of how obsession and jealousy can spiral into deadly violence. What began as a relationship between two young people ended in a crime scene, a courtroom battle, and years of public fascination. Even today, the interrogation footage continues to circulate online, drawing new viewers who try to understand the psychology behind what happened that night. Some believe Shayna truly felt threatened and acted out of fear. Others see the case as a calculated act driven by jealousy and an inability to let go. But one fact remains undeniable. On that night in Kentucky, 6 gunshots ended Ryan Poston's life and transformed a troubled relationship into one of the most talked about true crime cases in modern American history.